Make game day yours. Tickets, food and drinks, stats, and streaming. Everything you need is in the Utah Mammoth app. Download today and make game night easy. Download on both Android and iPhone. Just top. It's time for the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games at Southern Utah University in Cedar City. Register today to participate in the 40th anniversary season of a Utah sports tradition at utahsummergames.org. Participate in over 50 sports around the state. Then plan to join the opening ceremonies Friday, June 5th, presented by State Bank of Southern Utah. Register today to participate in the 40th anniversary season of the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games.
It's time for the biggest story of the day. This is what made the cut with JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake Scott, pre-half and post host, of course, all season long for your Utah Jazz on the radio network of the Jazz. And he also hosts Jake and Ben every day with Ben Anderson. Jake, this was a long season, but you've always kept back. I've always felt like every time I've dipped in with you listening on my way home, you've at least had people have practiced some perspective, and I appreciated that.
I appreciate that. I truly take that as a compliment. You know, people ask me through the rebuild. I think I've said this on your show before, but it's funny. They talk to me like I'm, deathly ill or something. Like, are you okay? And it's like, no, I'm fine. In fact, I honestly tell people I don't really care that much about wins and losses day to day. Whatever. What I'm looking for is interesting, and hopefully doing post games and admittedly some nights it's more difficult than others, but hopefully we grab onto something something interesting and are able to explore it. And it's not unlike of course I'm sure JJ producing a TV newscast. I mean, you still got to grab something interesting from the game. You still have to grab something interesting from post game, and that's ultimately what I'm rooting for. But it's been taken to the extreme, and I suppose I am looking forward to next season.
Well, this season is over, and I think everybody's excited that the rebuild is over. But I think that there were some things that happened this year that were important. As you look back on this season, what impact do you think this season will have on the future of the franchise?
Huge. I mean, it's huge for a couple of reasons. I mean, the trigger. Because there's two most important stories and they're connected, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. The trigger to make the Jaren Jackson Jr. trade was Keontae George becoming a guy. If that had not happened, the Jazz would have kept their, not would have, I mean, what do I know, but could have, I should say, kept their powder dry. Don't make the move for Jaren Jackson Jr. and, continue to rebuild until you find enough guys that you feel like you can be competitive. I think, saying, Keontae is going to go ahead and make the next step. He's going to obviously be good enough to have a role in the future and a big role potentially. He saw that potential and said, okay, let's make a move. And it also allowed them to keep Lowry. How long could they kick the Lowry marketing can down the road? So, Keontae George becoming really a fine player on and off the floor. By the way, they just glow about him over there about what a fine job he's done developing himself as a person, and honestly, kudos to him for that. But I believe that happening triggered the Jaren Jackson Jr. trade in some respects, and also allowed them to fit Lowry into the window, whatever that is. So, I would say those are the biggest things for sure.
Well, let's talk about a window, because the other thing that is interesting to me is the Walker Kessler piece of this that I tend to sort of just go, oh, yeah, look, the starting lineup is going to be these guys. And then you throw Walker's name in there, but some work has to be done, of course, to be able to make that happen. And when they do make it happen, how long can you maintain a payroll like this for this team? And how long could a window be open potentially?
Well, the answer is it could be real short, which is funny with the NBA and how they've decided to structure things. If you don't make the right decisions, like the Donovan and Rudy window, whatever that was, honestly wasn't open that long,
right?
Because of these cap issues, and you have to make the right decisions. But if we're looking in the short term, honestly, Walker's going to be back. Now, do they figure out a deal? Do they make him go get his own deal and then just match it? They're not going to let the asset walk out the front door. But the challenge is maintaining a healthy relationship with the player while playing hardball. You send mixed messages, and then that creates relationship difficulty later on. I mean, of course, we remember Gordon Hayward and that situation. But if memory serves, I think that was the beginning of the end with Kawhi in San Antonio. I think the Spurs did a similar thing with Kawhi. But I could be wrong about that. If that's fake news, I apologize. But it does do damage to relationships, and whether that's worth it or not. But I would guess Walker is going to command. I hate guessing numbers because, man, sometimes you just don't know, and I don't know what a market is like for a center, and then who has money and all that. But I would guess Walker is not going to be cheap. But I would also guess he doesn't get everything he wants, either with the Jazz or with someone else. So it's delicate. But long story short, he's going to be on the team next year because they'll just match whatever. I mean, he's too valuable not to do that for. But then, you look and say, all right, do we have to move on from him eventually? Which is what happened with DeAndre Ayton in Phoenix. DeAndre Ayton went to restricted free agency, got a ridiculous deal. Hell, guys, remember who signed him? Was it Detroit? Detroit signed him to a ridiculous free agent deal that the Suns had to match, and then lo and behold, they move on from DeAndre like a year later. I mean, Maybe there's a scenario where that happens. So, but you just can't let a guy that could walk for nothing. So they won't do that. But then they've got to make decisions. And how tolerant is Ryan Smith of paying luxury tax and all that sort of stuff? It all comes into play once you start making a decision to win. But if you're going to start looking currently, you've got to have your two max guys, and that's Lowry and Jaren Jackson Jr., and then maybe you plug in. I don't know if Key gets a max rookie extension. I kind of doubt it, but he did have a great year. But he's eligible for an extension, so what does that look like? Do they push that out another year and make Key go into restricted free agency? There was a whole lot of ifs, but it's better than having nothing and praying for draft picks. So it's up to that brain trust over there to make the right decisions, because once you get capped out, it gets tough, to your point.
Another thing that this franchise worked really hard to do was to give them the best chance to keep that draft pick. And unless they lose this coin toss and a 0.7% chance comes to fruition, they are going to be successful and keep it. So they're going to add a lottery piece to this roster that's already been built. As you look at the players that are available, regardless of where the Jazz land, what player that's in that top 8 do you think would be the best fit for them?
Oh, I mean, best player available. AJ, Darren Peterson. I mean, you can take your pick. You can look down the line. I think the draft experts, which I am not one, are saying this is top 10, top 8. I think are kind of the numbers that I'm hearing. But maybe check out Kristen Peek's fine work. She does a good job with draft stuff. But I think you can expect an impact player. I think it's a valuable pick. Even if they wanted to trade it, they probably could get a lot for it, just based on the reputation of this draft alone. But I think it is important that if they could get a guy and plug him in somewhere where he could play a role, then you have a talented player on a rookie deal, right? But I've been kind of sticking to this when it comes to the Jazz in the draft. They have the real luxury that they don't have a real need. I mean, they can take the best player available. And whether it's pushing a young guy or filling a role immediately off the bench, given Walker's contract situation, would you say no to a big? I don't think I'd have to memory. So I don't think there's a big quite that high in the projection. So maybe that's not a thing. But they wouldn't say no to that, right? I mean, to take a point guard, have some negotiation leverage with Keontae, I don't think they say no to that.
There's a lot of good point guards in this draft. It'd be tough not to take one.
Yeah. No, but listen, you can never have too many bouncy, long wings, Like the Jazz are in a position in the draft where they can take whoever they truly think is the best, because they don't have that, we kind of need a big thing or any of that. They can evaluate and make a straight pick.
Jake Scott joining us. Of course, he hosts Jake and Ben every day, 10 to noon right here on the KSL Sports Zone with Ben Anderson. And he and Ben are our top dog insiders for the Utah Jazz, and we lean on these guys a lot. And they went through quite a bit the last 4 seasons. Jazz fans have been through it for the last 4 seasons. What is the model now? Is it just something that people look at and go, oh, San Antonio's doing it right? You just build in the draft to get a little bit lucky, but you can skip steps, it feels like, in this new era.
I think sometimes I hate the model discussion because it's impossible to replicate what another team does, right? How do you replicate what Golden State does? It's like, well, you find the best shooters on the planet, the 2 best guys at the exact same time. It's in Oklahoma City, Paul George make a crazy loyalty. What am I looking for? I mean, a bout with loyalty, and decided to re-sign with Oklahoma City. Who could have seen that coming? And only to be traded a year later. It's wild to pick out the model thing. But can I tell you? I think if you want to throw the skipping steps thing out there, that's the Jaren Jackson Jr. trade. I mean, that takes you from a young team to a youngish team with a guy who's made multiple playoff, I don't know if you want to call them runs, but he's certainly been there. Defensive Player of the Year, All-Star, all those things. Like the dude is not new. He's proven. He's really good. He's huge. I think all of a sudden the Jazz are huge, which I think is so compelling because you guys, we have been talking about undersized teams since the dawn of time. I mean, Bojan Bogdanovic, go out and play against Giannis. Good luck out there, And all of a sudden, the Jazz are the biggest team in the league. Ace Bailey is your 4th biggest guy on the floor, and even positional size, Keontae George at 6'4" is not bad. And so all of a sudden, this Jazz lineup is giant. I love that. At a time when the league is zigging, where they're going one way, the next thing is going to be a zag, right? And the risk with a zag is sometimes you miss, but you're huge, you're athletic. Lowry can shoot the crap out of the ball. Jaren Jackson shoots it very serviceably enough, certainly enough that you have to pay attention to him. I mean, I think unique is a winner in the NBA sometimes. You find out what's next, especially if you don't have Shea. Jaren Jackson and Lowry are great, but they're probably not as good as Shea. So if you don't have that, I hate if you don't have the league's best player, you can't win. Well, figure it out. And so I kind of like the uniqueness going forward of having the Jazz having a huge team.
And Ace Bailey is one of those guys, and we all saw the flashes that he showed this year, and there was so much to get excited about. But obviously, this is a team that's going to be trying to win and get to the playoffs next year. Is Ace Bailey, have you seen enough from him to believe that by next season he will be a starter on a playoff team?
Oh, man. Well, starter in a sense, like, let's keep in mind that Ronnie Brewer started at the 2 guard.
Fair enough.
On plenty of playoff seasons. So,
yeah, and it was 4-on-5 most of the time in the playoffs, too, which you don't want to be in.
So
that was a weakness.
Yeah, that was. Well, he could guard. Ronnie could guard.
Of course.
The dunk spot,
yeah.
For a 2 guard. So let's keep that in mind. The thing about Ace, and I think I'll steal from Locke a little bit too, because he said this a couple times, and I think he took it on a conversation with a coach. But that Ace, like a few times a night, does something that only like a handful, like 10 or 12 people on the planet can do. These pull-ups with this bouncy jumper, and some stuff that's just like, whoa. There's nobody on the planet that can stop that, and he's got athleticism, he's got size, skill. I love his demeanor. It's always his head's always up. He's got a smile on his face too, which I like, but his head's always up. I think he battled this year, which I think is a good sign. The sickness, and then all of a sudden he's out of the rotation, bided his time. He didn't come in with a lot of entitlement. I think the signs are there for hey, the Jazz have a role to fill. This guy's going to grow in and fill it. But back to our draft conversation, you pick a wing, and all of a sudden Ace has somebody pushing him, and Ace isn't the hot new toy in town, and there's a new rookie Biden for, or lottery pick Biden for star status, and, that rising tide lifts all boats, as they say. So, that could be good for him too. He has to get better, no doubt about it, but, he's got little stuff that you just go, okay, well, a guy your size doing that's going to be very difficult to game plan for.
The final, I think, player availability of the year, we caught Chandler Holt walking through, and I said, "Hey, how'd that availability go? Who did they roll out?" He goes, "Oh, it was Nurk and Kevin Love." And then everybody's asking, "Are you guys coming back? Or do you guys want to come back?" And then today at the end of the year press conference, and Will Hardy was asked about it. What's the benefit of getting guys like Nurk and Kevin Love back, who've both expressed interest in signing back up to be with this team?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure they both did.
I know. It's like, yeah, I'd love to come back. I'll sign on that line for a certain amount, and I'll just keep it going, man.
Yeah. No, listen, I think Nurk still has some gas left in the tank. I'm not so sure about Kevin Love. I mean, do we want to talk about the value of having veteran presence in the locker room? I'll listen to that. But the Jazz are all of a sudden pretty short on roster spots. Certainly of rotational players. They could use a backup big, but if you look at the markets for big these days, you could find a decent backup big for, I don't know, the veteran minimum, because they're only going to come in and play 10 to 15 minutes. And I think we found out that Filipowski can play that big position at least a little bit of the time if you want to wrong foot the opponent. So I don't know if I'll tell you this: if Nurk can get a 2-year contract somewhere else, he's not coming back to Utah, because I don't think they'd give him a 2-year deal. Maybe like a 1-year vet minimums kind of thing. I could see that. Kevin Love, I'm not so sure where he goes from here, but I don't think even the tanking Jazz really expected to play him this year. I don't know. Did you guys get a different vibe than that?
Exactly. Yeah, agree.
I think they brought him in to kind of, be a parent. I don't think they were expecting
I was shocked how much he played, too. Yeah, I was.
Yeah. Right.
He was shocked how much he played, too. I think that was part of the deal, too.
Yeah, so I don't know. I wouldn't guess either one of them is back. Maybe Nurk with a league minimum, because it appeared to me anyway that he enjoyed his time here. I mean, he said nice things on Twitter today.
And they certainly were great all year long and said some great things about Utah and their time here, which is also always good to hear. Quick,
can we just say that let Nurk cook and that triple-double stuff, that wasn't real. That's not his role. That's not ever going to be his role.
Yeah, even if he's back next year, let's not let Nurk cook next year.
Yeah,
agree.
Right. So
agree.
Sorry, I had to get that up.
On the other end of that spectrum is all these young players on the roster. Suddenly, you're trying to make a playoff, and all this youth is not an asset at that point. What is the Jazz going to do with all these young players? Because there's not enough room for them. There's not enough minutes for them. You're not going to give Cody Williams 30 minutes to go out and score 30 points like you did this year. What do they do with all these players in the offseason? Because you just mentioned it. They're in a number crunch now. There's not going to be enough minutes and enough rotation spots for all these guys.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And what a great motivation for them, right? And we can all look at them and look at their shortcomings and say, okay, well, this is, what's going to limit you, and this is what, Bryce needs to guard. Cody needs to learn some ball handling, some offensive skill. Isaiah Collier still needs to really improve that shot. Kyle Filipowski still kind of has to decide what position he's most effective at defensively, a liability. So like a lot of NBA role players, we're talking about players with flaws, but John Conchar has come in and had this attitude of, I just want to be a role player. I'm just going to do all of the things, and that might be the type of guy that boils that kind of goes to the top is how do you go in and compliment your teammates? But like with Bryce, you can look at previous editions of the Jazz where they needed a Shandon Anderson, or even more recently like a Jordan Clarkson coming in off the bench and be a guy who can have instant scoring. Can Isaiah Collier bully the backup point guard for 17 minutes a game? He could probably do that. We can talk about if Cody Williams can improve mildly offensively and up his defensive bite, which is already pretty good. Who doesn't need that? Another, hey, go take another shift on the other team's best player. You can see where these players can carve out roles, but there's a lot of other good NBA role players too, and so there's that delicate balance. And I think was it you earlier, Jeremiah, bringing up they may have more value to other teams.
Yeah, absolutely. I did talk about that. Yep.
Yeah. So if another team sees something they like in Bryce, and
valuable
Bryce
trade pieces.
Yeah. And remember when the Jazz signed John Amici because he had a good game for Orlando against the Jazz?
He wasn't the only guy the Jazz signed because Larry loved those guys.
Yeah, he did. Other teams do too, so you never know.
Right.
Bryce cooked a few teams this year.
Yep.
Maybe Jerry Reinsdorf in Chicago was like, oh, hey, this fuck did have something.
There'd be room on that roster for sure.
But it might have been the only. It might have been the only time in his career he's going to have multiple 40-point games. I'd go to Vegas with that one and say this might be the final year of multiple 40-point games for him in his NBA career. But who knows? Maybe he'll do the same thing somewhere else. Jake Scott, he hosts with Ben Anderson every day, and they do a phenomenal job covering this Jazz team. It's been a good year. It's been a long year, I know, for you guys, but it's always fun to dip in with you and Coach when you're breaking it down because you do bring that perspective, and so it's much appreciated. Jake Scott, thanks, man.
Hey, no, thank you guys. Seriously, you guys are the best, and it's always a pleasure.
There you go. Jake Scott.